two together for how that happened.
So what do we do going forward? That's the question.
Yeah, we double down. That's what we do.
Okay.
Are
This
you
is
saying that you're easily persuaded?
I'm saying that in the basically in today's NFL, we're seeing a lot of offense. We're also seeing this year some shifts in some offenses. I think one of the big storylines right now are the Titans and them getting better. Other people like Nick Chubb, players that you were stashing that now have a lot of value. And guys, we are in the age of what we like to call league winners. You know what a league winner is? That no-name guy that you have to pluck off the waiver wire that comes up and wins you some. Like Rex Burkhead last year was a league winner. Guys that kind of pop out of nowhere for DFS reasons are league winners. But as far as the performances today, what were some of the big performances that you guys were you liked, but maybe a little bit disappointed, or not disappointed, but a little bit shocked that they happened? Beard, we'll start with you.
I will start. I mean, Nick Chubb was one of them. That's for sure. I mean, we've seen it coming. We were high on Duke Johnson this week. I was. I mean, you look at the matchup, and it was Atlanta against a pass-catching running back. It all made sense for Duke Johnson. The pivot was to go to Nick Chubb, who's been getting 20, 22, 25 carries each and every week. So even in a difficult matchup or a matchup where maybe they were playing from behind, he's still going to get the ball. We saw that against Kansas City. We saw it again here against Atlanta. And what a run. I mean, longest play of the season. So that guy's going to continue to get fed, continue to be an integral part of that offense. So it's good to see. Comes in with a high pedigree, had to wait his turn. Now he's got his turn. He's taking advantage of it. So huge game. I think you're going to get more of those moving forward.
Josh, we saw some running backs that people I guess they're like the best ball running backs, right? You got Rashad Penny had a big day today. Derrick Henry had a big day today. Who are some other running backs that had a big day today that were who's that?
I was going to say, finish your thought that these best ball guys. So the running backs today that were what?
Yeah, that were drafted. Oh, I know. It was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is the other guy that we were drafting in the 10th round. Basically late round guys that are now starting to have a little bit of success, and now we have to figure out if this success is going to hold or not. What are your thoughts on some of these running backs that are now basically leading the team in touches?
Yeah, well, I mean, front and center is David Johnson, right?
Yeah,
because he was number one on a lot of people's boards, and that's me included, for better or worse. And it's nice to see that guy getting the run that he's supposed to get, that he's earned and deserved, and now he's getting it. That's great. Aaron Jones, it's good to see him finally apparently ascending to the top of the pecking order in Green Bay. It was nice when it was kind of a good indicator when they shipped Ty Montgomery out of there after he basically threw the end of that game against the Rams. So they kind of cleared the runway there. That was nice. Elijah McGuire, if you took any of him in the 18th round of your best ball leagues, he's starting to get a little bit of run. He led the running backs of the Jets in touches today, I believe. Obviously, they didn't turn into much because they got shellacked, but it's good to see him come off of IR and start to, kind of carve out his own role. It would be nice if he could render either Isaiah Crowell or Trenton Cannon useless, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're still going to mix it in, but he's getting a little bit of run. So LaShawn McCoy too, big day for him, huh?
Welcome back. Mark Ingram finally put up a decent game. It was one of those weeks you could play Kamara and Ingram. He was cheap in DFS, and you had to be patient with him. Kerryon Johnson, even in a bad game script, still put up numbers. So a lot of good running backs going right now.
All right. So the good running backs, and also I thought tight ends, a lot of young tight ends starting to make their presence known today as well. So we'll talk about those guys a little bit. Let's get into some interesting waiver wire ads, some of the big performances. Waiver wire ads. Zay Jones had 11 targets, 8 for 93 and a touchdown. Came out of nowhere against the Jets. Matt Barkley is the quarterback, and he had 25 attempts, and 11 of those were to Zay Jones. Thoughts on Zay Jones going forward? Kind of a deep league, Beer.
I mean, we all saw that coming, right?
No, we
Matt
didn't.
Barkley stepping in and dropping a 40 burger on the Jets.
No,
I mean, who
no,
didn't see that
my
coming? So,
DraftKings -3. It did not see it coming for the Jets.
I mean, the thing to keep in mind, if it's Barkley moving forward, I mean, maybe it is a connection with Zay Jones. You know, a lot of these guys, they tend to hook on to one guy and look their direction. So it's a 10, 12 team league. Sure, maybe need the depth. I mean, we're going into week 11. We got 6 teams on bye. So you may need some names you're not comfortable with, but 11 targets. Anytime a guy gets double-digit targets, I'm definitely going to be interested.
Josh?
Yeah, so I mean, once we found out Matt Barkley was going to start, I was immediately interested. You know, the last images I have of him were in Chicago at the end of the God, I can't remember the coach's name. The last guy that flamed out there before that John Fox took over.
Lovie Smith?
Not Lovie Smith. It was between him. It was the offensive guru from the CFL. Gosh.
Oh, yeah, they got Jay Cutler killed. Yeah, I forget.
Yeah, the guy that got Cutler killed. Anyway, so yeah.
Okay, go for
it. Barkley's last gameplay in Chicago at the end of, I think it was the 14 or 15 season, he was slinging the ball around, and he was actually amassing quite a bit of yardage in that offense, which was also bad. So I didn't think Barkley was a bad play today. And honestly, I'm not sure why they weren't playing ahead of Peterman already if they're actually trying to compete. So yeah. I think I don't see any reason why Barkley isn't the guy going forward for this team. So as far as like QB streaming is concerned, we'll get into that a little bit. We'll talk about Barkley a little bit there, even though I think Buffalo's on bye next week. It's that's going to be a situation we can monitor. Just Zay Jones I think he's going to be worth putting into your 12 and 14 team league rosters right now as a deep guy.
Yeah, like he's that guy that you can get for $1, especially with them on a bye next week. People are, I say this every week that we have this show, but people, a lot of times when they go to the waiver wire, they look at the waiver wire's projected points for the next week, and teams on bye just are not going to be on that list. As far as Beer, some of the other performances, Derrick Henry, like some of these guys that people might have dropped, they drafted them early and then they just got done with them. They dropped them. Derrick Henry, Rashad Penny. Are you high on any of these kind of resurging running backs?
I mean, Penny, you got to be interested in. They spent that first round pick on him. The problem is it's a 3-headed backfield, so it's keeping an eye on Carson. Is he going to be viable? The split was pretty close to even. Penny had one more carry than Mike Davis. Both guys put up numbers. It's a running game that continues to produce. So the pedigree makes him interesting. If it's 3 guys, I'm less interested. If Carson's out again, I think Penny eats away even more of that. I think it'll be less of a 50-50. Maybe he gets a 60-40 split. He's another guy that you can probably get pretty cheap off the waiver wire. And Derrick Henry, much as I bashed the guy, he got it done today. We all wanted it to be Deion Lewis, including myself, but we know he's going to get his opportunities when he gets around the goal line. So as that offense gets better, more efficient, and is putting points on the board, I think that's only going to help make him more viable. So again, 6 teams on bye, you're going to have to dig deep. Those 2 guys stand out as guys that are probably on most waiver wires and should be at the top of your list as well.
Jonnu Smith, another guy for the Titans. So like Jonnu Smith, Eric Ebron, like these young tight ends that's like in shallow league, people aren't owning them, and you can kind of stream them. But what about like the deep leagues? Like I feel like Hooper's already owned in like the shallow leagues, right?
Yeah.
But in the medium, or in the deep leagues rather. But the shallow leagues, maybe they're available. But as far as like streaming tight ends, now we looks like we're going to have some more options, Josh, with Jonnu Smith, with whoever
Ricky Seals-Jones.
Ricky Seals-Jones, another one. Whoever's coming out of Indianapolis or Pittsburgh, take your choice from those guys. But your thoughts on the tight end position? Like I know there are some leagues that I'm in right now where tight end, it's a streaming every week deal for me.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to do it right now, unless you've got Kelsey on your roster, or maybe OJ Howard.
Right.
I think otherwise you
OJ Howard was up today.
Yeah, he crapped the bed today. I know that one all too well. And Jack Doyle, the same thing. Like we all thought Jack Doyle was going to be the shoe-in for probably 8 or 9 targets today, and it just didn't happen because they have Ebron and they have Mo Alley Cox as well that they're giving targets to. It's just, we got to be careful with some of these situations, assuming volume's going to be there and what we think is a high volume tight end passing offense, because teams are spreading it around. And tight end is just as bad as wide receiver anymore. So it's we do have to look for these situations like Ricky Seals-Jones, who received 9 targets today. And I don't see why that changes going forward, because Arizona's going to be behind every single week and chucking the ball.
Yeah. And at least the offense looks like it's somewhat serviceable now.
Yeah, it is functional. But, the thing to keep in mind is Josh Rosen is under siege on every single snap where he drops back.
Yeah.
Kansas City does not have the best pass rushing defensive line, and they were still just waylaying that poor dude every time he dropped back. So that's going to be a theme for Arizona, which probably is a decent reason to have Ricky Seals-Jones on your roster as a streamer.
Bear, there is some resurging wide receivers as well. Anthony Miller is a guy that I'm sure is available in a lot of shallow leagues, maybe not in the deepest of leagues, but Anthony Miller is now becoming that preseason darling that we thought he might be. Over 100 yards receiving today, had the touchdown. Taylor Gabriel, just nowhere in sight. So Anthony Miller, your thoughts on him going forward?
Yeah, I don't mind him. The problem with Chicago, they have so many guys that they can go to. Allen Robinson's back healthy. He saw 8 targets. We know Trey Burton's going to get some targets. We know Tariq Cohen, and Gabriel's not going away. I mean, he didn't do much this week, but I like Miller. But 6 targets this week. He had a big game out of it. Yes. Is he a deeper league ad? Yes. I'm not as excited about Anthony Miller as some of the other guys that are out there. But again, we need the depth. You need guys. You can add them. It's not going to be a primary guy for me this week.
Josh, what about you? Are you an Anthony Miller truther?
I'd say in Dynasty, sure, I'm a truther, but right now, I think that was more a result of the Lions being so depleted in their secondary this week that Miller was able to eat. So going forward, next week could be a Taylor Gabriel game if they script a few more plays for him. He only had 3 targets today. Maybe they just didn't feel like they needed to use any of the specials that they have drawn up for him. That may be next week when they face, I can't remember, I think it's the Vikings. They may need to use him more next week as a kind of stretch out the defense type of dude.
David, let's talk about your boy, Devontae Parker, 11 targets once again.
Oh, did you see the wide open pass that he had?
I absolutely did. That's my team. I'm watching that Green Bay game.
And Brocktober just overthrew him.
Shocker.
If he just throws it anywhere in that area, then he's off to the races. But I mean, the thing with Devontae Parker is, it's not just like we want him to be a thing. He has had good measurables. And the reason why we have wanted that is because his measurables, the things that we saw in college, like the guy's player profile or comp is AJ Green. Like, he has the talent. This is why it was like just baffling why he wasn't getting the ball or really getting any snaps. And he had the whole agent versus the coach, Gase, and it was just a mess. But I think he's the guy going forward there in Miami, especially with the injury to Albert Wilson.
Well, I mean, as long as Brock's there, that's the worry, though. I mean, how much production are they going to get out of the position? Stills is back. Amendola. I mean, there's a lot of guys. I don't know if any of them are great. That's the problem. But another double-digit target game is certainly encouraging.
Yeah, all right, go ahead, Josh.
Just real quick, you need a game script where Miami's going to be behind, I think, for Parker to be useful. But I believe Miami's on bye next week. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah, with them being on bye next week, we talked about guys you can get for $1. That should be Parker. So I don't have an issue with it. He was horribly inefficient on his targets today, so I don't know maybe what the situation was there. But
they play the Colts in Week 12, which will be a nice, I think, will be a nice game for Parker.
And they are by Week 11.
Yeah. So, Indianapolis is like one of the worst defensive lines in the league so far as creating blown blocks and pressure on the quarterback. So whoever Miami QB is, that will be in a good spot. So I kind of like Parker in that situation too.
All right. So unfortunately, the bad injury for today, as we talk about injuries, is Cooper Kupp. They say it doesn't look good. They think it's an ACL, a torn ACL. So without Cooper Kupp, this offense, is this something where Josh Reynolds is going to be a worthwhile pickup, Josh?
Absolutely. I mean, we saw what Josh Reynolds could do a couple weeks back when Kupp was out and he scored 2 touchdowns. He looked damn good doing it too. So I think he's certainly worth a look. We might also take a look at Gerald Everett, who's seen a lot more target volume the past couple of weeks. and he may fill in some of the target void left by Kupp, especially in the red zone where he got in the box today. So it's I think both of those guys are going to kind of fill in there.
If we could axe one of Higbee or Everett and just make them one tight end, that'd be a beautiful thing. But I agree on Josh Reynolds. There's enough volume in that offense to make multiple pieces viable. And like Josh said, he showed his upside. Consistency, that's where you might worry in a season-long league. You plug him in, might not be a week for him, but does give you those spike weeks, and you're coming closer to playoff time. That's what you need. If you're in the race for the playoffs, you may need one of those 25-point weeks. That's a guy that can get you that off the waiver wire. You don't find those guys every week.
Yeah, those 3 wide receiver sets, him being in on, like you said, Josh had the good game. I think he's probably like, if you had like your priorities for just like regular 12-team waiver ads, he would probably be at the top, right? And then like Rashad Penny maybe after them if Rashad Penny's been dropped.
I think it's going to be Reynolds for sure. Penny, I'm still going to probably be out on. He looked good today, but the Rams are a known bad run defense. They allow the run to happen. That's a Wade Phillips defense. That's what he wants to happen because it slows the other offense down. So I'm going to be cautious about Penny. I still think it's going to be the Carson and Davis show when Carson's good to go. So Penny's going to be fighting for some scraps, in my opinion.
And keep in mind, they're on a short week. They got the Thursday night game. So, that tends to be less offense, and it's Green Bay. Okay matchup, but just something to keep in mind.
Okay matchup? Is that the Green Bay?
That is the homer in me talking. Yeah. You saw that defense today. Of course, Frank Gore looked good. So what's a youngster like Rashad Penny going to look like? So neutral matchup. How about that?
This has nothing to do with the waiver wire show. I'm just really curious. Frank Gore, is he a Hall of Famer?
I say no, but I don't know. He's been good, but has he been Hall of Fame good?
It depends. Like, do you reward durability?
Right.
If you longevity. Durability, then he's a shoe-in.
This is why I'm asking you guys. I know it's not an easy question. That's why I'm asking you guys.
I would put him in before I put in Eli Manning.
Oh, Eli's not getting in. No way.
Oh.
No way. Ooh. I agree with that. I'll give Frank Gore all day over Eli.
Give that man a gold jacket right now.
All right. As far as other injuries, I didn't see really any other injuries, which is good for a week 11. Like Edelman had an injury, but he walked off on his own power. And they have a bye week this week. I think he's going to be good, 2 weeks from now. I didn't really see any big injuries. Mike Davis got hurt, but came back. Had a touchdown there at the very end. Thank you. Thank you, Mike Davis. Any injuries that you guys saw?
Devontae Parker did hurt his shoulder during that game, so we'll see. Keep an eye on that. Jakeem Grant was another one that was carted off. So maybe we lessen the receiving core there in Miami, but I think Parker will be fine. But no, it was pretty safe week for injuries, which is good.
All right, going forward next week, we are a site that values the late round quarterback, the streaming quarterbacks versus matchups. Josh, you mentioned Matt Barkley. He's not a guy you're really thinking about, right?
Yeah, I'm going to think long and hard about him when they come back out of their bye. Absolutely.
I'll say this guy, a guy that hopefully you picked him up right when the news broke, but Flacco has a hip issue. Looks like he's not going to be playing. I'm not sure for how long this is going to be, but Lamar Jackson is the top QB ad for me. And then another guy in the same kind of mold, a guy this offense has been playing really good. He's been doing great. He's been doing better than like Andrew Luck in the same conference, and that's my boy Marcus Mariota. Beers, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love the Lamar Jackson ad. I added him in a few spots. As soon as that news hit, I ran to every waiver wire and let me get as much Lamar Jackson as I can get. Dynasty leagues already had him, so all set there. But yeah, I mean, there's talk. Robert Griffin may be the guy. Get out of here with that. It's going to be.
I don't know. That's going to be my stance. I'm cautious on Lamar Jackson. I have enough exposure to him in best ball that I don't feel like I need to run out on my waivers and grab him. I think there's a very good possibility that Griffin's the starter.
See, I don't know.
I will. Well, I'm not going to say what I would do because then if it happens, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, don't jinx us on our Lamar shares here.
Yeah, because he has top 10 potential. because of his ability to run the ball, and something we haven't seen since Vic and Cash days. So,
and guess who he gets this week? The defense that just gave up 51 points to Cincinnati Bengals at home.
Just saying.
That defense is dust too, with Perfect injured.
And it's an ad. Like, it was leagues that I had, some extra spots. I had the flexibility. It's not a primary ad. Like, if you're going to drop somebody worth value to speculate on Lamar Jackson, you better be 7-1, 8-0, 9-0 at this point to do that, or you better have a deep bench. So those are the kind of leagues where I'm, willing to roll the dice. Because Josh, you're right. It could be Robert Griffin. I don't think it would be. I think they would put Lamar Jackson in there, but you never know. I mean, the talk is out there for a reason.
Yeah, see, like, the thing that Griffin offers Baltimore is the ability to run the exact same offense as they run it now, with Jackson still as kind of a wild card player. So really, the offense does not technically miss a beat by putting Jackson in, and kind of maintain the status quo. That's what I think they're going to do. And that's why I think they're going to do it.
Back to Marcus Mariota. He's got the Colts this week. I just think he's got a really good matchup, and this offense is just, it's clicking. They're creative. He's catching passes out there, not his own ones, but he is a guy that I think is going to be a great QB streamer this week. Other QB streamers you like, Beer, this week?
I'll leave Eli for Josh. I know he wants to talk about him. But speaking of Josh Rosen at home against Oakland, that's always a matchup that we're going to want to expose. So Mariota, love the matchup with Indy. High-paced team, so you should get even more plays in, like you said, that offense playing well. But Josh Rosen, they're starting to put it together. David Johnson was very encouraging. Larry Fitzgerald, we know, is very productive at home. I think Christian Kirk can bounce back next week. So, like Josh Rosen against the Raiders.
Yeah, I would also consider looking at Case Keenum if he's available. They play the Chargers. They're going to be on the road playing in the soccer stadium, so I don't think crowd noise is going to be too much of an issue there. And I think Chargers should be able to put up enough points that will stress the Broncos into putting up points on their own. I like that. I like Dak Prescott against Atlanta next week. I think there's an opportunity there for them, especially if they decide to run him a little bit more than they have been so far this season. I like him quite a bit. And then lastly, we talked about Eli. Eli gets to face the Buccaneers. And, what else needs to be said? He gets to face the Buccaneers. He gets to do it at home, and he's got the receivers to exploit the matchup. So I think that's a good spot for him. That's a place you'd want to use him.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else as far as, there's a lot of teams on bye, so I don't think there's too many quarterbacks. We did get a couple questions in chat asking about top defensive streams this week. Defensive streams is you just pick the teams that have really bad offenses. And I'm looking at this Bucks Giants game. I'm not sure you would want really either defense in this game. The Bucks gave up or had the most yards while scoring 3 points today. I don't think that's going to continue, but the Ravens are probably owned. Streaming defenses that you guys like. I'm not seeing too many right now.
Arizona?
Yeah, I'll say back to Arizona for me. Anytime I can go against Carr and that team, I want a piece of that at home. You pair them up with David Johnson, use Rosen. I think there's a lot of ways you can use Arizona, but defense should be near the top of the list.
I like that a lot, actually. And I kind of like the Texans against the Redskins, too.
Are the Texans floating on waivers, though? I'm guessing they're probably going to be owned in most leagues. But I do like the matchup quite a bit. If they happen to be available, I would certainly pick them up for next week against Washington.
I think a lot of people stream the position now, so you'd be surprised what defenses are out on some waiver wires.
Yeah, especially if someone owns the Texans, it means that they have two defenses. So a lot of people that dropped the Texans on a bye week or just didn't like them, they might be available there. Well, guys, week 11 hopefully is going to be good to you guys, just like week 10 was for us. Hopefully, this Monday night game though is going to be the cherry on top.
Oh my goodness! Can't wait! Cannot wait!
Yeah, Giants Niners, baby.
No, next Monday, Chiefs.
That
and Rams.
Not this week, Josh. Next week. We're talking
the Mexico City special.
Yes, sir.
Chiefs and Rams. All right, that will do it for this week 11 early waiver wire show. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Make sure to follow us on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a follow, and we would definitely appreciate it. Special thanks to Josh at Fantasy ADHD on Twitter, at BeerMakersFan on Twitter as well. And hey, thanks to Stu, our producer, for getting out there on a Sunday night and producing this show for us. We do appreciate it. We hope you guys appreciate it as well. We'll see you back week 12 for the early waiver wire show here on FantasyInsiders.com.